All right, get ready, everyone, because today we're taking a deep dive into, well, Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, the movie.
Oh, okay, I get it.
But we're going way deeper than Punxsutawney Phil and all that.
Deeper.
We're looking at, we're going to explore the Catholic themes in it.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. A Catholic take on Groundhog Day. I liked it.
You know the movie, right?
Yeah, of course. Everyone knows the movie.
Yeah.
Phil Connors, right. The cynical weatherman.
Right. Gets stuck reliving the same day, February 2nd, over and over and over.
Yeah, it's a classic. But Catholic themes, I'm curious.
It's like, when you really think about it, it's kind of like a parable.
The parable.
Yeah, about purgatory and grace and conversion, all those big things.
I see where you're going with this. Phil, at the beginning, he's a mess.
Oh, he's a total mess.
So cynical, so selfish, so caught up in himself.
Right. He can't see past his own little world.
It's like he's spiritually, well, almost dead. Like he's sleepwalking through life.
And a lot of us can relate to that to some degree.
Right. Oh, absolutely. We all get stuck in those ruts sometimes.
So that's where the time loop comes in, right?
It's like a metaphor for purgatory.
The purgatory.
You know, that state of purification that our faith teaches us about.
It's not about punishment. It's about refining us, getting rid of those things that are blocking us from God.
Exactly. And the repetitive nature of the loop. It shows how we can get trapped in our own patterns of sin and selfishness.
We keep making the same mistakes over and over.
Unless we choose to change.
And that's where those second chances come in. The time loop, it gives Phil all these chances to do things differently.
It's like God's grace is at work, offering him a fresh start, again and again.
And at first, Phil, he just squanders those chances, doesn't he?
He does. He uses that time loop for all the wrong things.
Indulging every whim, trying to get rich, seducing women.
Even trying to kill himself. Like he thinks he can outsmart the whole system.
But it always backfires. Sin never leads to true happiness.
It just leaves him empty. More and more despairing. It's like going through those stages, The thrill of sin, then the disillusionment, and finally, hopefully, that turning point where you start searching for something more.
And Phil does eventually hit that turning point, doesn't he?
He does. And that's where things get really interesting.
He starts to make different choices. He uses his time to learn new things, to help people.
And it's not just about becoming a good person. It's about a deeper change, a change of heart.
Like a true conversion.
Exactly. And I think his interactions with Rita play a huge role in that.
Rita.
Yeah. She's such a bright spot in the film, isn't she?
She is. So kind, so virtuous.
Like a beacon of light in all that darkness.
And she's not buying any of Phil's nonsense. She sees right through his games.
Which is crucial for his growth, I think.
It forces him to confront his own motives, to see how messed up his ideas about love are.
He's trying to manipulate her to earn her love, but that's not how real love works.
No, it's a gift, a grace, something we receive when we open ourselves to it.
And Rita, in a way, she embodies that grace.
Yeah.
She shows Phil what true love looks like.
She's like it's almost like she's a reflection of the Blessed Mother.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see that. She's guiding Phil in her own way toward a better path.
And then there's all the symbolism in the film.
The symbolism.
Yeah, like the groundhog and the snowstorm. It's more than just quirky details.
Ah, I see.
Punxsutawney Phil, the groundhog. He's kind of like a false idol.
A false idol.
It's that whole idea of looking for meaning in external things instead of focusing on God.
Ah, okay. And the snowstorm, what about that?
It's like divine intervention, shaking things up, forcing Phil to look inward.
Interesting. There's that Catholic imagery of snow, washing away sin, a clean slate.
Exactly. Those snowstorms in our lives, they can be opportunities for growth, even if they're painful.
I like that. And what about, we haven't talked about Larry yet, the cameraman.
Larry.
Yeah. He's a fascinating character, always there, filming everything.
But he never seems to fully grasp what's happening.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who are we recording our lives for?
Are we living in a way that reflects God's love? Or are we just going through the motions?
Big questions. We'll definitely have to dive deeper into those in the next part.
We will. But for now, let's just let those thoughts simmer. We were talking about Larry, that cameraman, always there, always watching.
Yeah, like a silent witness to everything that's happening.
It's almost like he's a stand-in for us, the audience.
Or even those people back in Jesus' time.
The ones who saw the miracles, heard the teachings.
But didn't really get it. They walked away unchanged.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Are we really paying attention?
To the signs of grace, yeah. In our own lives, in the world.
It's so easy to just get caught up in the day-to-day.
To miss those little miracles happening all around us.
Like those early Christians. Meeting in secret, sharing simple meals.
Changing the world one small act of love at a time.
It's a good reminder holiness isn't always about grand gestures.
Sometimes it's those quiet moments, the everyday acts of kindness.
And Larry, with his camera, it also makes you think about
About
our lives being recorded.
in God's book, yeah. Every thought, every action,
It's a little bit scary when you think about it.
but also comforting in a way. To know we're never truly alone.
Like someone's always watching over us.
Even when we mess up, even when we fall short.
Makes you want to live a life that's worthy of that, doesn't it?
To make choices that reflect God's love.
So we've talked about the audience watching and God watching.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the people in Punxsutawney?
The town, yeah. They see Phil change too.
At first they think he's a jerk. Arrogant city guy.
Looking down on their traditions, their way of life.
But as he becomes more selfless, more loving,
They start to see him differently.
they see the good in him, the genuine kindness.
It's almost like they're witnessing a saint in the making.
Makes you wonder, are we called to be those kinds of witnesses too?
To shine so brightly that others are drawn to God's light.
Like Jesus said, to be the salt and light of the world.
And it doesn't have to be complicated.
Just small acts of love, a kind word, a helping hand.
Letting our faith shine through in everything we do.
So we've got the audience, God, and the townspeople.
All witnessing Phil's transformation.
But here's a thought. What if Larry's footage is also for us?
Us. You mean like the viewers of the movie?
Yeah, like on a deeper level.
I see what you're saying. We're not just watching Phil's story.
We're engaging with it. It's challenging us, making us think,
Like those illuminated manuscripts. Beautiful on the surface.
but with layers of meaning hidden beneath.
You have to look closer to really understand.
And while Phil is changing, Larry stays the same.
He's stuck, going through the motions,
Trapped in his own little world.
never really experiencing the joy that Phil finds.
Like he's in his own personal purgatory.
Fixated on control, seeking validation from others.
Remember that line he keeps saying, "Nobody touches this horn but me."
It's almost sad how much he defines himself by that.
And then at the auction, he's literally being sold for 25 cents.
Ouch. What a contrast to Phil, who's become so beloved.
People are lining up to spend time with him, to learn from him.
It shows the difference between living for yourself and living for others.
Phil has embraced that gospel message, losing himself to find himself.
And he's reaping the rewards, while Larry is stuck with emptiness.
Like the parable of the talents. Phil invests his gifts, Larry buries his.
And misses out on the abundance that God has to offer.
But it's not about being perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about striving.
To align our lives with God's will, to follow the path of love,
To let go of those things that hold us back.
to surrender to God's grace and let Him work in us.
Every moment, every choice, it's all part of the story.
And like we see in Groundhog Day, that story can be beautiful.
Full of transformation and redemption. Hope for all of us.
So think about it. What are your Groundhog Days?
Where are you stuck? What's keeping you from true freedom?
Are you open to letting go, to embracing God's grace?
Remember, even on the most ordinary days, miracles can happen.
If we're open to them. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We've talked about Phil's journey, this whole conversion thing, the purgatory aspect. But what actually changes things? I mean, how does he finally break free?
That's the big question, right? It's not just about being good or even escaping the time loop. It's deeper than that. It's like a complete change of heart.
So it's not just willpower or good deeds. Then what?
Well, think about how it starts. Phil indulges in, well, everything, right? Thinking that's the key to happiness.
Yeah, he goes kind of crazy with it for a while.
But it all leads to, well, emptiness. Sin promises happiness, but, well, you know the rest.
Yeah, it's like he's testing it all out, all those worldly temptations.
And finding out they're all hollow.
So that disillusionment is important.
It pushes him to the next stage, that dark night of the soul kind of thing. Despair. He even tries to, well...
To end it all. Yeah, that's dark place.
But it's in that brokenness, that surrender, that grace can really come in.
Like those stories about the saints. Yeah. Feeling abandoned by God, going through trials.
Exactly. Those dark nights can actually bring you closer to God.
So indulgence, despair, then what? What shifts things for Phil?
Remember the homeless man?
The one he keeps trying to save.
At first, he's indifferent. Then, after his own struggles, he feels this urge to help.
Like his heart opens up.
But he can't prevent the man's death. It shows him, well, he can't control everything.
It's tough, but it's also a lesson in humility, in letting go.
And that's when Phil changes his focus. He stops trying to escape and starts using his time to, well, to make a difference.
He learns new skills, helps people. He actually becomes a good guy.
And finds true joy in it, like the gospel, whoever loses his life.
I'll find it. Powerful stuff. And his love for Rita changes too.
Oh, absolutely. He stops with the manipulations. He just loves her.
Accepts her for who she is.
A self-giving love, like Christ's love for us.
So it's that shift from selfish to selfless that breaks the cycle.
He wakes up to a new day, not because he's earned it, but because he's finally, well, become who he's supposed to be.
A changed man. And that's what sets him free.
And it's a journey we can all take. It's what following Christ is all about.
So, folks, as we finish up, think about this. What are your own Groundhog days? Where are you stuck?
What's holding you back from that real freedom, that real joy?
Are you willing to let go, to let God in and, well, work his magic?
Remember, even on those tough days, even when it feels like the same day over and over, grace can find a way in. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.